Okay. Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. We're back again tonight on the Postal Service and how they fell into dishonor multiple times and what we've got to do to resolve it. And like I said in the first few videos, the communications have been kind of up and down, and I've run across a couple people that have been able to comprehend what I'm doing here. And so now it's finally progressed to the point where somebody finally gave me information of proper addressing of the matter. And that is to physically write, handwrite, or type, print out a physical letter on paper and send it through the mail. This is according to the postal rule, the mailbox rule. The offer isn't considered accepted until it's posted. So that's what we're talking about. Is I tried to post something through the post office from their own offer, and they dishonored it by not accepting it in return, simply because they weren't familiar with the form. So we're going to get on, and before we do, I want to thank everybody for your support. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro and do the same. And if you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus, hit that like, share, and subscribe. And if you're on Facebook, I oftentimes forget to mention this, and you want to join the panel link is pinned up to the top of the YouTube channel. So you have to get over to one of the YouTube channels to join the chat or the panel here. Please feel free to click on that link and join the panel anytime. I make it a point to try to ask people to do so, simply because I am not the know-it-all. I need other subjective points of view and stuff to give me other ideas or tell me where I'm wrong. So again, please feel free to join the panel and help me out. And in the meantime, let's get started. Where are we at here? If you remember last night's video, we ended on the discussion about the tax responsibilities of expatriation according to 26 U.S. Code 877A. And like I said, there's a tax responsibility that doesn't apply to us because of the term resident, long-term resident within that code. We are not a resident, so it doesn't apply to us. So the next one is 8 USC 1481, loss of nationality by native born or naturalized citizen, voluntary action, burden of proof, presumptions. That's in accordance to 8 USC 877, as opposed to 877A, where they talk about the tax responsibilities. 877 talks about tax avoidance by expatriation. So it comes to the loss of nationality, which when you're born supposedly here in the United States, there's a state residency that's created, which creates a dual citizen. The loss of nationality is because the nationality of a United States citizen is what's conferred. The state has no nationality. It is a country, and ceded its national jurisdiction under admiralty law for maritime regulations through the United States. So they ceded their nationality to the United States for the maritime regulations of the United States, which has no nationality. There's no birth registration. It's merely a set of documents, the paperwork, that is located within the 10-mile square of Washington, D.C., the business district. A person who is a national of the United States, whether by birth or naturalization, shall lose his nationality Let me make sure I got this stuff taken care of. I want to take these. There we go. Okay, so a person who is a national of the United States, whether by birth or naturalization, this is a situation we talk about in regards to the birth document, where if you're born in the hospital and you don't do the birth registration, there's a presumption of naturalization by that event. Presumption. And the burden of proof lies on you because mom and you both committed a voluntary action. It was voluntary that mom go to the hospital. You are not required to go to the hospital. And all you women and men that think it's necessary, I urge you to I remind you to think back in the annals of history and see how long people promulgated their own children long before a doctor, long before a hospital, which are modern conveniences brought about by technology only. It is itself just in its birth. Shall lose his nationality by voluntarily performing any of the following acts with the intention of relinquishing United States nationality. That's all you're relinquishing. You're not relinquishing your ability to contract. You're just relinquishing your United States nationality, saying that you're outside of the United States, never been associated with the United States, other than have been naturally born on the land through the bearing of your mother's labor pains. Therefore, if anybody is an enemy of anybody, it would be the United States posing a false nationality. Obtaining naturalization in a foreign state upon his own application or upon an application filed by a duly authorized agent after having attained the age of 18 years. Or taking an oath or making an affirmation or other formal declaration. Again, remember last night I asked about if you ever been to customs and they ask you if you have anything to declare. This is what we're talking about. A formal declaration, a form. Form all. The specific use of a specific form of declaration. What is a declaration? Well, it's declarification. They have a clarification. You're going to declarify theirs because theirs is an error. You're going to correct the terms. It's a correction of all records. So let's think about this. Of allegiance to a foreign state or political subdivision thereof. Like I said, I'm an alliance. I'm an ally in alliance with the state and federal governments as they are, because a government is required. However, I am not in alliance with the way they operate. I am separate from that and can maintain the same operations without their trustees. This is called age of majority after attaining the age of 18 years. Or entering or serving in the armed forces of a foreign state. If A, such armed forces are engaged in hostilities against the United States, or such persons served as a commissioned or non-commissioned officer. Now remember, when you get that document and you make your marks on that document, you're helping make that document. So you are providing co-dominion of that document, like we spoke of last night, coastal water, adjacent coastal states. A foreign state that is a co-dominion of the document. a customizer of the document rather than a securitizer of the document. Okay. Check the panel and see if anything's going on. And while I'm at it, greetings, Callaway. I don't see much anybody else. JLV, greetings. It tells me I've got a certain number of viewers, but I only see a certain number in the chat. Nicholas Peter Ergero, if you're here, greetings. Again, I want to thank everybody for your support. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button on Hecklebus and El Perro both. If you're on Facebook and you want to join the stream, you got to come over to YouTube. Hit El Perro on YouTube or Hecklebus on YouTube. So, when we talk about that declaration, we're talking about the U.S. Postal Service Customs Declaration and Dispatch Note. We went over patch last night, and what we've got is a hole that has a patch on it. There's a patch on something that's not, it's kind of deceptive. So we're going to dispatch it. We're going to open things up and make them patent. Now, what you'll notice is the instructions for completing this form. And then there's, let me downsize this a little bit. So, and this is instructions for the form. U.S. Postal Service Customs Declaration. Notice it's the Postal Service with that nice little trademark or registered agent mark there. It says print in English using blue or black ink. Complete all shaded fields before acceptance. See the privacy note on the reverse side of copy 4. So there's 4 copies. On this copy, you're going to fill in the shaded mark. It says complete all shaded fields before acceptance. So these are required. Whereas these unshaded ones, you can put in information if it's applicable, if you want to apply it. Okay. Shipment information. Continued box area is for UPS, USPS use only. So they fill in this part right here. So you put in your full last name. This is a form you can print off or get from the Postal Service. I recommend getting it from the Postal Service. That way they know what form you're dealing with and they physically give it to you. One of the issues I had with them understanding what form I was using is because I printed it off the internet. Well, that can't be one of our forms. Well, you better look it up. It is. Well, we didn't give it to you. So what? It's a public offering. If I ask for it, you would give it to me. It's identical in form. It's a formal declaration. So you line out and veto the full last name. You put family name. Same with first name. You put given name. Business name. You put the all caps name of a new name that you created, such as I did with my site that nobody can deny because it's the Keith Orland Little FBU, which has been noticed in the International Forum for 3 years. Not only that, but I've got an enterprise payment system with the United States Postal Service as an online enterprise payment system account. And it is the Keith Orland Little FBU Trust account. So that's what I would put here. I would be glad to put my telephone number because that is the international communications bonding number. Communication meaning a conveyance of debt. Address 1. Pay attention. Address 1 and address 2. Why is there a difference? And why is if this one is going to be different, then what's the difference? Pay attention and watch. As we go down, this is the top copy. 1, customs declaration. Important. This package may be opened officially. So you've got a sealed packet. That's what this is for. You've got a sealed packet. You've got a suitcase. You've got something under lock and key. If this is a proper identification, it should pass through rather than being entered into the mail. Dispatch as opposed to mail. Second copy, identical for the address. 2, dispatch note. This package may be opened officially, so it's just another copy. But notice there's a difference on the bottom. Did you guys catch that? This section here. This one looks like you got places to fill out. This one don't. What's the difference? Office of Exchange. Customs duty. Customs stamp. For category of items, check all that apply. Document. Other, indemnity / redemption. Over here, sender's email, addressee's email. If I'm the sender and the addressee, I'm sending something to myself. Sender's email, my private email, addressee's email, my business email. Wordwise Warrior, Wordwise Warrior. How do we fix that? We can do it on here. We can send on a regular envelope. We can send something to the mail through the mail to ourselves. This is just going to correlate that everything's an internal record of that trust, and there's only one email, and that the document is in fact being sent to myself as a matter of an escrow operation, so that the Postal Service is noticed by a note. It's a promise if it's a note, right? So did they promise to dispatch it instead of entering it into the mail? Exporter's reference. See, if you're the one giving it, you're the exporter. Give them a reference. This sender's telephone, the sender is the one that's sending it out and is exporting it, so it should match the exporter's telephone. Got it? The reference is a number I created myself, and that's according to the epoch number of the creation of that Keith Orland Little FBU, the creation of the exporter's business name itself. So again, there's a distinct difference in what you say on these forms and how you fill them out. So on this second one, where I showed you there's a difference in the bottom, look at the address information. Address 1, address 2. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. There's an extra box here. See, there's no box. Or excuse me, there's a postal code instead of a zip code. There we go. See, up here, there's an address, and then they use a city, state, and zip. On the addressee's information down here, it's got a postal code and a country. State, province, and country. What's the country? Republic of Iowa. What's the state? State of Iowa. What's the city? Waterloo. See, just like the exporter has an identification that's going to match up through a number, the state and republic's going to have the same thing. What's that number? Social Security number. Number 3, post office copy. Number 4, sender's copy. Dispatch note, customs declaration. So it's a process. You make a declaration, it gets dispatched, people get copies. You put it out, it comes back. It's called circulation. United States Postal Service, and like I said, other indemnity redemption, insurance and indemnity coverage. Priority Mail Express International and Priority Mail International parcels. Not mail, parcels. Containing merchandise. Merchandise, not articles. Are insured against loss, damage, or missing contents up to $200 at no additional charge. If there's indemnification from my side for all charges, then they can't charge anything. It's equal consideration, equal benefit. Therefore, it's the same principle as 50 USC 4305B2, full acquittance and discharge. If you want peace, you first come with peace. If you want equity, you first come with equity. You have to bring the indemnification. You have to bring the redemption. And you don't do it in part. You do it in whole. You know, the hole that has to be patched, recovered. Indemnity is limited to the lesser of the actual value of the contents, or $200. If the parcel has been lost or it has been delivered to the addressee in damaged condition or with missing contents, payment is made to the sender. So again, if you're the sender and the addressee, it gets paid to you. The customer agrees to make third-party payment so long as it's understood that credit is given to the customer's account. It's a common contract term. Unless the sender waives the right to payment in writing in favor of the addressee. So if I'm the sender of the credit and I'm known as the customer, and I'm going to be the receiver of the credit, I'm also known as the customer, then the addressee and the sender in that kind of a situation is the same, is it not? I'm not saying all of your mail should be like this, but there are certain legal or lawful documents that should be declared. You know, like a memorial, heralding the legacy of my father, antecedent to the decedent you are holding as an estate in probate. Give back to me, it is not yours. Merchandise insurance that provides coverage greater than the included $200 merchandise insurance may be available. It's a matter of making the indemnification whole right from the beginning. I assure you, what is in this package, what is in this parcel, is of no danger to anyone. Its value is this. It's assurance, not insurance. Redemption, as opposed to their indemnity and insurance. Assurance and redemption versus insurance and indemnity. Up to a maximum limit of $5,000, depending on country, content, and value. See IMM Exhibit 322.2, International Mail Manual. Told you before, the post office is your one-stop shop, insurance, taxes, and bonds. They cover it all. And the individual country listings for insurance availability. Limitations and coverage. The purchase of merchandise insurance replaces the included $200 merchandise insurance. So if you're going to purchase the merchandise insurance, that's a purchase order. Make sure you fill it out right. The purchase of merchandise insurance. When you make that merchandise insurance order, make sure that you put a greater truth to it so that all parties are fully acquitted and discharged, so that no person shall be held liable in any court. The contents are not dangerous, and the parties are identified by number, so therefore the beneficiaries are protected. This is a trust operation. You have to make the right declaration. Priority Mail Express International, Priority Mail International shipments containing only negotiable documents, negotiable or only non-negotiable documents are insured against loss, damage, or missing contents up to $100 for document reconstruction at no additional charge. If you're going to be sending documents, make sure they're really short so they have a good value to them. If you go sending out a 99-page document and it's got a $100 value, you just spend $1 per page. Where if you put one page out that you can use to clarify that same thing in simple terms, then I suggest you do it. That paper is now worth $100 instead of $1. Do you see how you create value by using lesser words? A document can be a book. Make sure it's a really short book. Filing claims to initiate an inquiry for loss, damage, or missing contents. The missing contents are the contents that I put on that form that nobody else seems to recognize and isn't willing to accept the conditional amendments on their original offer. That's called dishonor. They can't even understand them. How can you dishonor them? You're supposed to accept them so you can come to an understanding. And then if it's just like the House and Senate, you pass a bill to the Senate. It passed in the House, you pass it to the Senate for their review. If they see something wrong with it, they make amendments on it, send it back to you to see if it's okay by you again. If you okay it, then it's good. Why is that not happening? That is the process. Call the International Research Group at 800-222-1811. That, folks, is the number I just called here in the last few weeks trying to get this resolved. That's who I've been speaking with. Now, when they said about the privacy statement earlier, your information will be used to satisfy reporting requirements for customs purposes. Collection is authorized by 39 USC. That's the Postal Service. The Postal Service is a collection agent. Their communications are communications about the conveyance of a debt. U.S. Code 401, 403, 404, 407, 13 U.S.C. 301 to 307, and 50 U.S.C. 1702. So these are some codes we're going to be looking up too, I imagine. Providing the information is voluntary, but if not provided, we may not process your transaction. So I provided the information, but they still refused to process the transaction. We do not disclose your information to third parties without your consent. You have to have consent of communication, the conveyance of a debt, except to facilitate the transaction, to act on your behalf or request, or as legally required. On your behalf or request. They're doing it on your behalf. That means they're operating as a trustee for your benefit. Or as legally required, also a trustee for your benefit. How do we know this? Because they are the United States Postal Service, the registered agent for the trademark holder post office, leaving us as the only possible position to be filled, the benefactor. This includes the following limited circumstances: to a congressional office on your behalf, to financial entities regarding financial transaction issues, to a U.S. Postal Service auditor, to entities, including law enforcement, as required by law or in legal proceedings, to contractors. Your landlord is a contractor. And that guy you hired to mow your lawn, that's a contract. He's a contractor. They can give it out to him if he needs it for some kind of debt collection, and he calls in the U.S. Postal Service to collect that debt on his behalf. And I've said this before, the system is set up for tellers, people that tell on each other. That's a banking transaction. Keep it up. Keep it up. That's what banking transactions are, telling. And people go around telling everybody in public instead of making declarations. And other entities aiding us to fulfill the service providers. McDonald's is a service provider. It's providing the service to fulfill the needs of what would otherwise be a vacant building. But because it's fulfilled, it now serves a purpose and has a revenue address that is operable under needful places and buildings. To domestic and international customs pursuant to federal law and agreements, and to other governmental entities with authority over exportation. With authority over exportation. Excuse me, I am not exporting myself. Why are you requiring a commercial identification? Are you trying to export me? Are you trying to assert some kind of authority over me as if though you are exporting me and you have to make sure that I am not dangerous and I can clear customs? I assure you, I can fart as loud as you want and it's not going to hurt anybody. For more information regarding our privacy policies, visit usps.com/privacy policy. And like I said, this is something I'm sure we're going to be looking into. I hope everybody's comprehending what's going on so far. Because it's basically your communications and not knowing how to convey that debt. Because see, I think the only debt I owe is to our Father which art in heaven. I fear not, for he's redeemed me, and he's called me by thy name. I'm his. So whatever they try to get out of me as some kind of collateral or shadow property is a little null and void. It's kind of like that unum sanctum, declaring that the Pope has claimed all the souls of living men. That's in blasphemy of Isaiah 43:1. I fear not, for I have been redeemed. He's called me by thy name. I am his. 44:5. One shall say, I am the Lord's. One shall call himself by the name of Jacob, and another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, and call himself by the name of, or by the surname of Israel. So we got to think about this process and what we're really doing on that paper. Again, that paper, a blank sheet of paper, is known as a negotiable instrument. You can instrumentalize it by putting your terms and conditions on it and making it an offer to anybody. Just know what you're offering and to who. It's actually getting pretty simple. The more I do it, the fewer terms I'm able to use in these communications. Okay. The next one, I showed you that list last night of the material that I've built up already. And here's something that's in there with it. Going to go over some stuff real quick as it relates to myself and my companion. That statement of services from the local cable company that started all of this. And what it is they're operating an abusive trust tax evasion scheme. And as we saw about the expatriation, there's a tax avoidance, expatriation to avoid tax at 26 U.S. Code 877. Avoiding is not the same as evasion. So see IRS Form 14242. It actually discusses abusive trust tax evasion scheme, not a bill. See, by presenting it as if though it's a bill and saying you owe that money, they are absolutely wrong. And they have that social security number and they're using it as an obligor number, as if though you are an investor and not a trustee, rather than that benefactor I just explained. It happens in every situation. It's an automatic conversion. You have to be able to prevent that conversion by allowing the use of a number in lieu of the name and address that says, oh, this is the number that was provided, and therefore you can't use another number. That would most certainly be obfuscation, RICO, and various other things, fraud, and many things. And this goes to a primary liability versus a secondary liability. And when it comes to things like the cable bill, utility bill, water bill, see, that cable line is hooked up to a telephone pole out in the easement. There's already a regulatory authority on that. Same with the gas lines, phone lines, water lines, electrical, all of it. That's the dangerous stuff, and that's why they have easements, and that's why it's a conservation easement, and they require specialized licenses to do those trenches and run those lines. Because, see, the landlord is the primary liable party. He's the primary billing party. The secondary liability is yourself for use of that address as a renter. And when your rent includes the utility, what they're doing is passing on their bill to you as a primary liability and making you a secondary liability. And you believe that you have to do that. No. All you have to do is fix the records. You are not the secondary liability. You are the benefactor in usufruct. You are using only. You don't own it. Nothing. You're just using it as a benefactor. Primary billing addresses versus secondary billing address. And again, it's all about the address and a re-venue. So when they have a primary billing address for a primary liability and they re-venue it to you, you carry a secondary liability as a secondary billing party. You have to defeat that presumption, and you have to do so at the beginning. Otherwise, it's paying hell to get them to do it in the middle, because then they want to evict you. See also FinCEN Form 101A, Suspicious Activity Report, and FinCEN Form 104, Currency Transaction Report. And these two reports, that suspicious activity, is because there is a primary billing address and a secondary billing address. That should raise some suspicion. Reasonably and logically, naturally. And so all of this is because that issue is the estate recovery for both Joyce and Keith. The birth certificate has no nationality. We are not judicial nor extrajudicial prisoners. We are not subject to your exportation regulations or your import regulations. There is no administration of an estate of those who are in fact alive. This is Scott versus McNeil, Library of Congress. Hey, all you gotta do is punch that into your chat section or your search engine, and you're good. Sorry about that, folks. He doesn't bark for no reason. So, what we're looking at now is in regards to that estate. What is the estate? Well, we're going to take a look at a few definitions from Black's Law. And somehow this isn't sharing. Let me try this again. Okay. I guess it is sharing. My apologies. Okay, so what we're looking at in regards to effect is the verb to do, to produce, to make, to bring to pass, to execute, enforce, accomplish. This is Valesburg Motor Corporation versus Fidelity and Casualty Company. A belief that a mortgage would affect a preference under the Bankruptcy Act is equivalent to a belief that it would operate as a preference. A belief that a mortgage would affect a preference under the Bankruptcy Act is equivalent to a belief that it would operate as a preference. So an application, a belief that an application would affect preference under the Bankruptcy Act is equivalent to belief that it would operate as a preference. Did you realize when you signed up for that SS5 that you signed up voluntarily for a bankruptcy? And therefore the effect was considered a preference. Okay. Effects: personal estate or property See Johnson versus Olson. Movable or chattel property of any kind. That application, that birth registration, that registration at the hospital, all of it. That's chattel property. Chattel property is paperwork. And again, that paperwork belongs to the United States, the debtor. And where is the debtor? Oh, goodness. We can't find him. We've never seen him, never heard him. Hell, we don't even know if it's male or female, kind of like God. Who the fuck is this United States? Ettlinger versus Importers and Exporters, Insurance Company of New York. In this sense, the term is more comprehensive than the word goods, as including fixtures and chooses in action, which goods will not include. Also, every kind of property, real and personal. Personal property, goods, worldly substance. If the term is used simpliciter, as in a gift of all my effects, it will carry the whole personal estate, unless an intention appears to the contrary. So when your mom signs that birth registration, she's handing over the whole of the estate, all of her effects. That's literally the way it's deemed in law. The meaning of the term is determined by the context and surrounding of the circumstances, and is broad enough to include property of any kind. The words real and personal effects will embrace the whole estate. So again, this is one of those things where I tell people doing those UCC filings and they want to list all of their property. And I ask them, well, that's what you're going to do. Why would you expose the property like the beneficiary and tell them that you've got a 65 Mustang, mint condition? Why would you tell anybody that? That just entices them to come find it and take it from you. It's much simpler to just put real and personal effects and then put one value to it. Instead, everybody wants to get consumed with their ego and their personal items and tell the world all that they've got and how well off they are and say, well, I've got this and I've got that and I've got this and I've got that, and put all the values down. Go ahead, suckers. You big dummy corporations. So I've got a little note down here. All titles and derivative effects created in the name and all of its styles and enumerations. All titles and derivative effects created in the name and all its styles and enumerations. So when mom went to the hospital for prenatal record, it's going to include all of those titles. The key is in the name, and the combination is the enumeration and not a nationality. I don't give a fuck about the nationality. I don't give a fuck about the name. It's all about the numbers. Put them in order. That's where things show up in order first. Even when it comes to this parse syntax grammar with David Wynn Miller and Russell J. Gould and Mark Hahn Christofferson or whatever, all they're doing is the same thing as putting the logical reason of the terms being used in order. And again, those letters are dependent upon numbers first. The numbers were created by lines and angles themselves are defined as numbers. The number one has one inside angle. The number two has two equal inside angles. It looks more like a Z. A 3 looks more like a sideways W standing on its side, with 3 equal inside angles. 4 has 4 equal inside angles. Tomorrow night, we're going to continue at 8 o'clock with what definitions apply to this part, and 31 CFR, what is a Treasury direct account? This is that account, the accounting that's established at birth, where they create an account in your name. So think about this stuff, folks. I appreciate all your support. Be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Get this information out there. I'm going to work on putting some more short videos out. If you look back, you see a couple short videos I put out. Just a matter of a minute or two. Hopefully those will be some that you can generate and share for others to kind of draw them to the channel. I'd like to get this channel growing and get this information out there to more people that have a like mind that can use it. Tired of people sitting around not doing anything. So please help me with that. Again, the PayPal links are down there if you want to share some love, but we really need to get this content out there. In the meantime, you guys know I love you, but I don't give a fuck whether you love me back or not. You know, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. But what I will do is keep explaining it over and over and over again in as many ways as I can to get as many people to get up off that ass and do something about it so that you can comprehend the only way anything's going to get fixed in your life is if you do it. Don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. Sooner or later, you will be able to comprehend it, and we can move forward then. Meantime, God bless. Have a good night. See ya.